Mate, he's got a wealth. I'm interested in. Look, I'd like to throw something to you, mate. It's Whiskey a Go-Go. Huge story, John.
Absolutely, and I think actually that you met the guys. I knew them. I knew both of them. John Stewart and James Finch.
He was going to run the valley exactly like King's Cross. He's seen how the corruption was with King's Cross and the money that was getting made through the people involved. So he said, well, I'm going to start my own little racket up here in Queensland. But one thing he didn't do, and I know he didn't do, he never got involved with police. He was going to do things on his own, and then he got Finch to come up to be his backup with him because they were very fit blokes and they trained hard in jail. They were very fit. I knew Finch well. I gave him one of my last wipes. I threw it over the wall to him. I used to play handball against him and he was fit as bloody 10 men. He was great. It was good to have met him, but when he's got out, Stewart's got him to come up from Sydney and they were going to do their own little thing in Brisbane. But they had one thing that they couldn't do. They wouldn't and couldn't join the police force, as some of the other crims were doing. Some of the low-life crims that I've run into over my life since, doing business for police. It was a no-no. You go and do your best, get a quid the best way you can, and stand up and be counted. But don't go living in the back of a copper's fucking pocket, and which there was that many of them that made you sick. And anyway, Stewart come up and the word was right from there and then Stewart was going to burn the whiskey. First up, the Torino got burnt. The Torino nightclub in the valley there, between the valley and city. It got torched. The police know all about that. The police know who done it. No one got charged. No, nothing at all. Hush, hush. Stewart's going to burn the fucking... after that happened, and they all got away with that, they got paid too. They got paid by a certain bloke, and we'll get to that later. And given the money. Stewart then decided he's going to burn the whiskey. Now we go back into things deeper and deeper with myself in this because as years progressed of me football and that, keeping my nose out of trouble and working and doing a bit of football here and there and coaching and playing till I couldn't hardly fucking walk. I got involved with the nightclubs, bit of cash on the side, bit of money coming through here and there off different rorts that were going around town. The whiskey was pronounced broke. The whiskey, the big nightclub in the valley, was a Whiskey a Go-Go, and it was going to be the biggest thing around, and it was the biggest thing in Queensland, like nightclubs and that, in the valley.
Wasn't there a Whiskey a Go-Go in Sydney too?
Probably would have been.
Yeah,
Probably would have been. Probably would have been. I don't know. I never got that far. But anyway, the whiskey. So Stewart's going to burn that. Now, in my travels, I was coaching the football that, and I decided that my football career, there wasn't enough money coming there, so I went in and I worked in at the nightclub. Well, I worked in the nightclub of the blokes that owned the whiskey. The whiskey had already been burnt and destroyed. The people had been killed. Stewart and Finch had been charged. They'd been found guilty of it all both, and they both got life. And I could see it stood out because I worked for the people that owned the whiskey. And I used to take them out, I used to protect them. I used to take them out, we'd go out and have tea and that every night. I'd go out with them to make sure that I wouldn't take much notice, and they never explained too much to me, but the reason being was because of the whiskey, and there would have been people around town that were dirty on them about the club getting burnt and the people dying and that. And of course, that what happened. So,
Welcome back. Great supporters of our Whitehall and Associates. So we're gonna just discuss them and also thank them, John, for the massive support they've given us.
Well, they always support us, and they've got people who they work with who actually recommend them to come and watch our show.
Yeah.
And we always give them a bit of a plug, which I think, because people contact me, quite often.
Yep.
And I put them on a Whitehall and say, well, look, because I know I've seen what they can do, and even though they're only young, they do try. And it's look, the thing is, everybody, they don't win every case. Nobody can win every case.
No.
But at least they'll try, and they'll try. And they're not going to overcharge you, they're not going to charge you for this, they're going to do extra bloody stuff and say, oh, we did this, we did that, and we did more extra photostat stuff and that. They don't do that. And
Mate, they'll have a go at anything from what you've been saying. And you've said before, if it's not their particular field, bang, they'll put you straight on.
They'll recommend you to somebody else.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, but they have got experts in a lot of fields, particularly the main one. We've got Madeline West now, who's pretty well known.
She's well known actress and
actress
very nice person, I believe.
Yeah, and she's joined the team. And she's been over to South Australia with them. And
the South Australian Parliament, that was only recently. I saw a photograph there.
They got,
well done, Whitehall.
They got complimented by the South Australian Parliament for the work they're doing. We're helping people get, actually remunerated and apologise too for the stuff that's happened to them. And I just think that if someone like that joins them, then you know that she's got confidence in them. And we hope to get her in, actually to maybe do it.
We may be having a chat, folks, with Madeline. But, they've done such an outstanding job. They've been such a great supporter of us.
Yep.
Take on the underdog. No win, no fee, which is a big one.
So if you need them, who are you going to call?
Whitehall and Associates. And it's
Yeah.
Stewart had already been in the club. He must have had a bit of a yarn with what the caper was, but we knew down the track that the whiskey, being such a high-profile club, is all of a sudden the whiskey has gone broke. How in the fucking hell could it go broke? It was booming. Well, the bloke that was the manager, Hannay, believe it or not, he was a puff too. He was a puff. Couldn't believe it. But anyway, he was the manager for Little than that, and he was running the club for years. Anyway, he was milking it and milking it and milking. We had a great fucking time. So when it comes to the end of it, it's virtually at the point where nobody was going to kill anybody. Nobody meant to harm anybody. But it was going to be burnt like the Torino. The Torino got burnt. No one got injured or hurt. It was just torched, went to the ground. Blokes got their insurance and away they go. Well, with my happenings, with the recollection of the conversations that I had with the new manager, John Bell, Brian Little was the Kiwi owner. We had a lot of conversations about the things, and I was always there to protect them as we went out for tea and that. So no one was there. And then no one did. They were never challenged. We used to go to Bellino's and a few places and go anywhere they wanted to. Nothing, no comeback at all. And which you would think after 15 people dying in the fire, there'd have been someone that would have been nice and filthy on them. But nothing was become of it. Anyway, Stewart. Get back to Stewart with his. He'd already been into the clubhouse, and the conversations that I had with Bell and Little, was that he'd already been in and he'd cut the wires, and he had the contract to burn the club. Yes, John, it's yours. You burn the club. There's your money. It's an insurance job. We've got you. They haven't directly told me that it was him but that's what it was gonna happen. So when it come to the point it's time to go, all of a sudden, Stewart has said, no, I'm going to burn it on the Sunday. Now the Sunday was when the club isn't operating. Stewart was going to burn it, yes. He'd made statements all around town, and I'm in the Wharfies Club at this time. You know everything that's going on. And the word was that Stewart was going to do it. That was his job. But it was on Sunday. He's got a call up and said, no, we want the club to be burnt on a Tuesday. When it's, well, not directly, but it did happen on the Tuesday, I think. That the point was going to be that it's going to be torched, but it's going to be done on not when the club's closed, when there's no one there. We want people there. We want to have an alibi where we are, where we were, and who's there and who's not there. So Stewart never come into it. He said he wouldn't come into it. He had no... His intention to do it was for an insurance, for to get a quid on the side, which we all did. We all were out there getting a quid here and there. Anyway, they took the contract off him, and who and what got the job, the only one knows are the people that did it and who were running around. You can have all the conspiracies in the world. I've got about 5 of them. I've got about 5 conspiracies about it all, but there's only one. So somebody knows. And over the years, the people, they've never ever come forward. Well, the club was done on the Tuesday night. Stewart was rounded up and he was charged. They threw the book at him because, you know, a few of the statements that were given, oh yeah, we heard John say this and we heard, of course, they all heard him. That was going to be on Sunday. It was only going to be an insurance job, not a fucking murder charge with 15 people, kids, fucking kids, young people.
What went wrong?
It's the way they burnt it. The fire never actually killed every one of the 15. It was more or less the smoke, the hallucination of the smoke. Apparently they rolled a keg in. They rolled an empty keg that had stuff in it, petrol or whatever they had in it. I've never got into that, but that's what they did. They rolled it in and let the match, and it's gone up, never exploded, it just burnt. So the whole club finished up in smoke and people. And I had my mate was working there that night. I went to the coroner's court to support him because I know what he went through when all this happened. He was nearly on the verge of getting charged for the murders of the people too, because he worked at the club that night. And Frank was only 17-year-old, a good footballer, and he loved the nightlife, and I loved the nightlife, and we had great times together. So Frank's been roped into it in his life. He done his marriage, everything. He tried to kill himself, he's burnt himself, he's done everything. But you know, he's still alive today, and I still go and see him. So Stewart's part of the whiskey couldn't go anywhere, but he got found guilty of the greatest kangaroo court that you'd ever seen in your life. Them 2 blokes weren't even in the dock when the case was getting heard. They had them locked up. Finch bit his finger off, and Stewart was doing something else. He swallowed wire and all that, and man, Stewart never wanted to be charged and known as a murderer of people. No matter how bad he was doing other things than what he did. And that, to me, it showed that all the way through the rest of my life and the things that I've heard different things from other people. I've heard Bellino's name mentioned. Bellino never, he had his own pockets full of his own clubs. He didn't want to get, he probably would have liked seen it get burnt down because of the competition that he has with his clubs. Maybe yes, maybe no. Then you hear someone else done it and someone else did it. But the people know, and there's people about there know that do know who did it and whatever. And I've always said, it doesn't matter who did it, how come people weren't looked at to say, well, how was it arranged? Someone must have arranged it. Someone must have said, go ahead. And that's for the police to find out and work out, which they've all got there from the Fitzgerald inquiry, and the names and the things of people.
What about the owners of the club? They would be...
Within 12 months, the club, it was gone, and they went and got another club where I went and worked with them. I was working for them then at the next club they got. It was only about, wouldn't have been 12 months later, so they got the insurance money. They must have got something.
What was it called? That club?
Pips. Pips nightclub in Elizabeth Street there somewhere, or down the back. Yeah, Pips nightclub. And that was all sort of involved with the point where they were going to turn the valley into another bloody King's Cross with all them corruption of the police that come undone. And some of them were charged and some weren't at different times. A couple of them got a couple of years here and there. And none of them were any good. None of the police were any good. And as you say, the blokes that did know of a lot of things that happened, they weren't game to say anything, and it's the same as probably the crims on the street. Very tidy to say one word. I've come forward and spoke my mind now is because I've just had enough of it all, and I'm not going to live forever, but I know how people will be feeling, and I haven't nominated anyone or doing anything directly. We all worked together, and as I said, everyone was there for a quid. And things went wrong. Right, now, going back to Goulburn, where I was doing my sentence. Started off, I was in Long Bay. I got expelled from there down to Goulburn. It was sort of a first term as jail. So my mate stayed in Long Bay because he was older. I got transferred to Goulburn, being a younger person, you know. First time in. Well, anyway, I've walked into it, and by the living Harry, I said, and by the feeling inside me of being convicted, I could have went and done armed robberies, I could have went and fucking done whatever I wanted to do. But to be charged with rape and carried on with it the way the coppers did, and I think that winters the copper that had trouble with me brother, and they squared up with me, which I didn't know till later on, but it did happen. And in case in Goulburn, of all them, the other one was where the only reason there in part that I've got through it in Goulburn, the screws in the jail were that bad within themselves. Not the lot, as you say, there's some good, some bad with their jobs they do. They would be at your cell, they'd wrap your cell every 5 minutes looking for things and knowing that you had to try and survive in there and you'd have a quid. I went through the time when the pound, shillings and pence, if you can recall. Pound, shillings and pence was converted over to dollars and cents. Dollars and that, you recall that? When you had to get the change over money? Well, can you imagine the confusion in jail of us crims we're running around with all our pound, shillings and pence, and we've got to get conversion. How are we going to get, I'm running around with say £100, which is a big lot of money. £50, you'd do jail easy, you could buy whatever you want and play cards and do what you want with that. So that had to be all transferred. That was all done through corrupt jail warders, doing the changeover for you and all that. If you say you had to get £10 change into dollars, they'd probably take half the whack out themselves. You'd only get half your fucking money. Well, that went all the way through. Perce Galea was another one that used to come up and see his son Clive Galea. Perce was a big punter in Sydney, had millions. I was good mates of Clive. Clive was in for fraud. And anyway, next thing I'm in the yard with him, walking around, he said, I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, listen to the races. I said, what? Here's Perce there getting around with a jigger in his ear. He's got his own wires, listen to his race. Perce has bought it up and smuggled it in through the corrupt screws, give him a few bob, take Perce in the jigger. So he was doing his time in there for fraud, and he's got the races going and everything.
What's a jigger?
That's a radio.
Oh, that's jail talk for radio.
Radio. Had your own jigger. Yeah, it's a little battery and you hook her up in the air, connect it up and away you go. Yeah. So all that went on with that. You had to survive and you had to do it the best way you could. But in my experience where I was that decimated for the case going through and what I'd been charged with and what I had to go through. I finally said to myself, I come in contact with the sports and started to play a bit of basketball. And then I come in contact, there was a bloke in jail and his name was Dave Scanlon. Anyway, he was, they'd have their sports day in there. And anyway, this bloke used to win the mile races, the mile race, the mighty mile race. 4 laps of Goulburn prison, 4 laps. Dave Scanlon was his name. Well, you know who Dave Scanlon was? Dave Scanlon was the Kingsgrove slasher. He had Sydney terrorised there for many years, getting around, going through windows and going into houses and cutting the negative glaze of the Sheilas in bed and things like that. He never ever killed anyone, but he terrorised them. Anyway, I got to meet him and he was winning all... Before he went to prison, apparently he was a very good runner on the outside and he was a veteran runner, long distance runner, and he just loved long distance running. Anyway, in my conversations with him and things like that, I couldn't help me, so I had to ask him. I said, mate, what was your cup of tea there? What did you get involved with that for? Oh, he said, Poss, he said, I just love getting chased by the police. Like he'd be here at Macca for 1 minute and the police would charge there to get him. He'd disappear and he'd be over in Redfern or somewhere else. He was jumping fences and had them on the run. He loved all that, so he said. But he had to be a bit wacko in the head. But needless to say of all that, I was the first bloke in Goulburn jail to beat him over a mile. Probably the first and the last. I don't think he kept going after I beat him, but I was the first man, and that was 4 laps. And the 4 laps I done, you only had to run 6 minutes to qualify to carry the torch for the Olympic Games, you know. Well, I went round and the 4 laps of the Goulburn prison in a pair of sand shoes, fucking old, not fucking Nike fucking shoes and good running spikes of that. I went round there in about 5:45, flat strap around the 4 laps of the jail. It might have been a bit longer or a bit shorter, but it was a long way, 4 laps of the jail. And anyway, I defeated him, and that was good because he got me involved in it where I had to train to do it. I had to build myself up to do it, so I got a few books in. One was on John Landy and the other was Herb Elliott. I got the book sent in to me and then I had a bit of a look through how they were training. So I said, well, I'll get into this in the cell. Well, I'm in a 8x4 prison cell. I'd be running up and down the prison cell all night and blokes would be screaming out, for Christ's sake, Potts, stop running, stop, it's fucking 3 o'clock in the morning. And all I had to do was, I've got to beat this fucking Scanlon. I've got to beat him over the mile. I keep training. So just up and door, touch the wall. I had to go insane, mate. Absolutely insane. But anyway, it come up to there on the 21st birthday. Here I am in on my 21st. What a great place to spend your birthday, eh? 21st. So I said, right, I've got to go down there. I had a job in there. I was a terrible worker. The only thing I could work, it was working hot. I was SPing and taking stuff here and unloading a bit of tobacco here and picking up a bit more stuff here. Well, I went down to the baker shop, and Dave Scanlon was in charge of the baker shop. And I said to him, Dave, I said, listen, it's my birthday, 21st. I said, can you help me out and give me a bit of tucker to take back to the shop if you have a bit of a party with the boys? You should hang about. Bang. He went in, and in the bakery, the bread was so good. Beautiful bread there in jail where they bake it for you fresh. So he got me 2 loaves of brown bread, so I squashed the loaf of bread so it'd be that big. You squash it up when it's really fresh into a fucking small. So I had 2 of them stuck down my fucking front, and I had some butter and jam all there, some butter and jam. Took it down to the carpenter shop in Goulburn jail, got all the bread out, and it all puffed back out, and I cut it all up and put the bread and butter on it. So time to get a few of the blokes that was going to have a bit of a piece of bread with me. That's my fucking birthday party, you know, 21st birthday party, a piece of bread. It's like feeding a fucking chook. But anyway, so I give me mates the kiwi, so they all come down, but they come down and the screw must have got onto it in the office, and you could see there was a bit of something going on. So anyway, so they took off as they could see him walking down towards me at the bottom of the carpenter shop. He's come down to me bench and he's looking around. I've got it covered with fucking newspaper with the bread and the butter and all that under it. And the bloke's all bolted. So he's come down, this Graham was his name in the carpenter shop. So he's lifted the paper up, and here's all the fucking sliced bread with the bread and the jam and everything on it. And he's just looked at me and he said, go on, he said, go and get your mates and get down here and get into it and then clean it up. Piss off. He let me go, he never pinched me. He must have knew it was my 21st, someone must have said something to him. So I was gone for young and old. And I'm trying to think about what I'm going to say. Where did I get the bread and the butter from? I had to go and get it off Dave Scanlon. I couldn't give him up. So anyway, that was all good. So going through all that, and then we had the escapes there of them three or four of them. I think it would have been 4, but I only can remember 3 of the names. And they were 3 bad murderers involved in the escape, and the only reason it attempted to escape, but they never escaped. They got halfway up the wall. They had the ladder up, they had the pick and the rope. It all went up over the top and trying to get, and they never succeeded that way. And they made a crossbow. The escapees had made a crossbow, and the crossbow was concealed in the cell, in a person's cell, with a ladder, the rope and the pick, the lot, all in one cell. So how that person there, that was one of the murderers, he was under that much protection, they didn't even go near his cell or worry about him. Where my cell or any of the other, they'd ramp your cell every second day. But anyway...
Do you mean they were afraid of it?
No, not afraid of him. They just don't know why. Don't know why they let it go. And well, it could have been too. But he was doing life, and he had his wall all dug out, and had everything packed in there. And then he had picture frames or curtains or something hanging on the wall, and they never ever went. And that must have took them a long time to get that done. And how they never come undone, because they were never ramped on, they were never... The cells of the door wasn't locked. His cell door was never ever locked. The bolt was only threaded across, and the night he got out, he put his hand out through the little window down and he slipped the bolt. That's how he got out of his cell. And then he went down and he got the other 3 lifers in their cell and let them out. I don't know how he let them out. Either he had a key or they weren't locked up. So that was the escape and Sam Catchin was the screw that got shot with the crossbow. And they said the crossbow was that hard to pull. They reckon you could have to get your 2 feet on it and cock it with your hand, pull it back. But this big Rodovich, the child killer, anyway, he hit the screw. He must have been attempting to go up the wall, and they must have run at him, and they kept it all hush up, hush hush. It was never because the public would have screamed blue murder to say, how could possibly you might as well have took a fucking tank, a war tank into the fucking, put it in the front yard and wait until someone jumped in it to start killing people. That cell that had all that stuff put in there was there, must have took them ages upon ages to get everything set up. And the crossbow made, bits and pieces of what it was made of, I don't know. But it was all been taken, and the recollection I had of it, that it's supposed to be in the Canberra Museum. But as far as the escape and the public outcry on it, nothing was ever said. I think that there would have been too many, the governor and the hierarchy screws would have got into that much strife for not do. Why haven't you done your job? Why wasn't that cell looked at? The public would want to know. Why would this murderess of a kid fucking cell not be looked at? Well, he was in the swim with the fucking hierarchies, and they weren't doing their fucking job. They were out running around grabbing blokes like us that were trying to do our jail easy. That's what it was. And it could be still looked in today, but I'd say that some of them are still going where they have looked into it. But if he couldn't find where the names and the bloody whatever, but I know that the Canberra Museum, that was mentioned to me, the Canberra Museum was where the crossbow was taken to. In a museum, because they'd want stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, so we talked about Bradley, the Graham, Thorn kidnapping.
Well, right, well then let's come into Bradley now. Bradley. Bradley was convicted.
Hang on, just one sec. The actual escape wasn't a successful escape. Did they get over the wall?
They never got over the wall. They got a part up the wall, attempted to escape, it'd be.
Yes.
That they never ever got out. They never ever got out, but they had the ladder, they had the pick, they had the ropes, everything was there. And how long did it take them to get all that and carried into the cell, put behind in the wall, covered over, a bit more of this and a bit more of that. Where were they going to go? I don't know what they had planned on the outside. But yeah, and then we moved on to, that was them blokes there, and I knew them, and they were three. I had altercations with the bloke that had done the business in the cell with all the crossbows and all that. He walked in front. I was playing tennis there one day, as I said, with that Finch. I wasn't playing Finch, I was playing another bloke. Just having to hit tennis with these wooden rackets. And as we're having a game, me and my mate, this bloke walked straight across in front of us while we were playing. And I've looked up, and who in the bloody hell, it was this, his name was something like Rodovich. He was about 6'7". Oh, fucking giant of a big tall man, big bone bloke. And he killed this 4-year-old kid, murdered her, raped her, buried her. Fucking Notorious, mate. And he's walking around like king shit. And the screws did threaten me. They did know that there, because with the case of Stephen Bradley, Bradley was another bloke that I absolutely detested because of his way of prison life. What he was given when he was sentenced to life imprisonment there. You know, you got to work yourself out who's good, who's bad, who, what, and this and that. But when it comes to kids and women, children, it's a no-no. The proper crims knew it was a no-no. Bradley walked in, they give him the best job you could get, they put him in looked after him, put him in whites, put him to work in the hospital, hospital in the prison, where you go and get your tablets and a few things, and the doctor comes once a week and you'd line up and go and tell him what's wrong with you and all this, but just to go for a break you'd be doing that. There's always plenty of people going to the doctors, and he's in there. And I looked at him this day, and here he is walking around, he's smoking this bloody mini pole monopole, what do you call them? Cigars. A fucking cigar. I said, we'd kill for a cigar in there, you know, we'd be always out getting the best of the, we'd be SPing and we'd be gambling and we'd be selling stuff and buying stuff with good tobacco like drum, amphora, all the different tobaccos, and we were always involved in that. But we never ever had cigars, and he used to walk around. If we walked around and we had a packet of tailor-mades and we were caught smoking a tailor-made cigarette, you'd be pounded straight away, taken up before the top man, and he'd put you away for a fucking week or 2 weeks in the pound, take you off amenities for 2 weeks, you get nothing. And he was allowed to walk around smoking these things. I said, God. And anyway, I spat at him a couple of times as I was going past him in my lineups, you know, you grub, you know. Well, anyway, I was warned then, keep it up, and they'll coming round me up and pinch me, you know, for harassment, you know, of him. Leave him alone, he's our prisoner, leave us alone. So what do you do? But he was no good. But anyway, we went down to play Berriman a sports day. We were in the bus, as I said before, we were in the bus. The bus driver pulled the bus up and got on the loudspeaker and said, he's just been informed Stephen Leslie Bradley is now dead. He had a heart attack in Goulburn jail. And that's where he died. And the whole bus erupted. Every person on that bus erupted and said, you beauty. Because they could see what was going on, the treatment that he got. And that's what they did. And the backlash coming from that escape of the 3 lifers, they were given the best of the life of the jail, walking around like they owned it. They didn't have to have a special pass to go from A to B. If you were caught in a section of the prison without having a pass to get there, you'd be gone, because they just walk around. So it's all coming. That's why there's been no investigations into why did it happen. It should never ever happen. It's too late when it happens. So there would have been that many questions for them there. That's why you can't find out anything about it probably. So that was Bradley, and as I said, it was he was the first kidnapped bloke. The kid died in the boot of the car, and they said that he didn't actually kill the kid. The kid suffocated, and he panicked then and tried to get out of the country when they arrested him.
John was saying, you know something about Finch went to England and confessed?
Well, at the time of with Stewart and Finch, when they both got pinched, they both got life. Now, they were in Bogger Road here in Brisbane, in Bogger Road, doing life sentences. Well, Stewart, when he got in there, and he absolutely just, he went bonkers over it all, and he was swallowing razor blades and wire and all that. He went on to, he got up on the roof there once in Bogger Road. There was pictures of him up on the roof with a couple of blokes. They got up and he put the tiles together the roof, something in wording of you know, the corruption or something like that, up on the tiles on the roof. He didn't want the conviction, and he was just denying every part of it.
They may have spelt out not guilty.
Yeah, not guilty or corruption, you know, or something like that, but ever what it was. So it was all there, it's all there done. But, and Stewart, he went really over the thing. Finch bit his finger off he bit his finger off, and
How did he get to London?
we'll get to that.
Okay.
They've had all the inquiries into it all, because they had to cop it sweet and do their life sentence, so they're doing life, and Stewart's playing up like old havoc in prison over his innocence. And me being me, I felt a bit self-sentiment about it all, because of I knowing that he didn't do the fucking whiskey. In my own mind, anyway, that's my conspiracy. But Finch, after they'd done so many years, somewhere along the line, Finch has got involved with a woman, and she was a spastic. She was a polio victim or something like that. Something wrong with her. Bag twisted all up. Well, he's got to the point where she used to go up and visit him, and then he's got into a relationship with him. Well, then he must have used his smart brain, and he's applied to marry her. So after about 6 or 7 years and that, they've granted him the leave to marry this girl. How that ever could happen, I am beyond me yet. How Finch has got married in prison with a female, or married, and she was a victim of polio or something like that. Well, then they decided then, after a few more years of his marriage in prison, they've released him to the point where to go back and do his time in England. And I think his marriage affair immediately broke up then too. So he's pissed her off. He's got a free trip to England to do his rest of his time in England, not out with the Australian cribs. He wants to be home with mum and dad there, sort of thing, you know. But yeah, that's how he finished. And over there, all the different parts of his life, he was given the opportunity, I'd say. It looked to me, Finch come forward and gave evidence over there in a statement that him and Stewart did do the whiskey. I said, fuck me, unbelievable. And he has made a confession over there, and the only thing I can say, well, he's got a good quid out of it from someone. But why he'd do that, I don't know. And how he ever got transported from Australia to England with a free ticket and marrying a woman in jail when he was in prison, the government's making scandal of every fucking part of life you could think of. You could put 100 conspiracies through it. You'd wonder what become of everything. And then James, he's dead now, he died. But I found him a good bloke, you know. Very fit man. You fight like 10 men too. They could all box on. And I think Stewart was he was a boy from Westbrook. All the boys from Westbrook, 90% of them all finished in prison. Very few fucking got out and had a good time and learnt anything. Yeah.
Yeah, bloody interesting, isn't it? You know, I mean, the guy's bloody interesting. This is what we've been waiting for, team. This wealth of information. It's incredible. I'd like to throw the next one at you, Poss, which would be. I've heard a little bit about you. He was a bit of a rugby league player, mate. Bit of first grade, very Poss. Good, yeah. St. George, was it?
Yeah, Parramatta.
Parramatta. Sorry, my bad. Parramatta. So tell us a bit about that, mate.
Yeah. Well, actually. Dick Fournette, the Pommy bloody legend, come over. He was playing for Parramatta, and he got injured, and I think you replaced him at one stage, didn't you, Poss? And then you got into a bit of trouble, I think.
Was it? Bit of biff?
A bit of a biff. It was a hard man's game in those days.
Bloody oath, yeah.
You know, and we were talking before about Bumper Farrell, bit the guy's ear off.
That's right, in Newtown, yeah, Newtown. He was a hard fella.
I reckon Poss would know about him too.
Righto, we'll go back into the I got out of the penitentiary I finished up in Glen Innes Prison Farm. I went from Long Bay Jail down to Maitland, back to Long Bay, and from Long Bay to Glen Innes Prison Farm, which was where you're given the opportunity to work your way out of your sentence and you're starting to getting close to going home. But anyway, after I got to Glen Innes, by that time I had the basketball down to a T. I was very active, I was fit, I trained hard, I played hard, and it kept me mind off everything that I've been through in the prison system. Everything that I'd done right, everything I'd done wrong, and what I had to live with. Countless times, as I've said to you before, about what they had in Bogger Road Jail and in Long Bay, Bogger Road, Goulburn, the pound, solitary confinement. The case of me, well, I don't know how many times that I was in confinement over the period of time, but there's always records there. I've tried to get me records for when I was in Bogger Road Jail when I was 15, 16. That they couldn't produce anything because they reckon the floods took all the paperwork that got lost in the Brisbane floods going back in them years. There was a big flood up there. I said, yeah, well, I remember the flood well. I said, but I can't remember it coming over the walls in Bogger Road. It'd be a bit too far. And they said, no, all your papers got lost and that, you know. And what it must have done to me, myself as a person, the convictions of the solitary confinement. I'd went through that much of it, and how many times that I was very close on quite a few occasions, what I'm saying about 4 or 5 times, had it all down to a pat where I was going to end it all with suicide. I'd seen suicide with other people in the prison. It's a very common thing. People slashing their wrists, they cut their wrists, they hang themselves. It was a very popular thing that happened to get rid of yourself. Well, I was in the position in quite a few times, and mainly when I was in the pound, I just couldn't believe the world could be the way it was, and how I'm in this bloody confined space with a shit tin, a Bible. Yes, they had a Bible there. I said to the crew, I said, what is the Bible? What's the Bible? And they said, well, you know, you can read it. I said, how can you fucking read it when there's no lights on? It's fucking, you can't see. And that's all they had in your cell was a shit tin, and all you could smell was a phenol they put in the tin, and a wire mattress on the floor. Well, the amount of times that I had finished up in there, I'd contemplated suicide 3 or 4 times and was very close to it. When you're saying very close to it, when you're standing there with a knife in your hand and you got it on your wrist and saying to yourself, well, which way do I cut? Do I just slash it across or do I go up? I didn't know even how to do it, and it sort of compelled me the way that I just fucking stayed away from it. And when I used to get down in the dumps like that to a low point, but if ever a screw come near me or I heard the door of the cell open from the pound, I would make sure that I sat up and give no inclination that I'd bow me fucking head to them, and that something was going on, that I'm a sook or crying for me parents and things, which I used to. I used to scream for me fucking mother and father. I'd scream in the cell. Wanting mum and dad, you know, as a kid. But if they come in that door and I heard the click, I would toughen up. I'd tell them to get fucked as soon as they come in. I wouldn't even speak to them. You know, you'd just give them a cook, and then they'd want to fucking half kill you then. But I got through that. How, I don't know, because I've seen quite a few people disposed of themselves a few times, you know, like, you know, blokes that were hard men, they got through it well in their own life just because the hard way they lived. But some kids can't do that. I've seen one kid come in there, he was up on a conviction, he was going to get 3 months jail for drink driving. He killed himself that night, he hung himself that night in his own bedroom. Because the judge said, bring your tooth. The exact words the judge said, when you come to court tomorrow, or the solicitor or whatever, make sure you bring your toothbrush and fucking soap because you're not coming home. And the kid went home and hung himself, you know, like things like that. It's pretty hard. But anyway, I got through it all, and so we went from there. Now the football in Grafton, that was a bit of a laugh for me in one respect, because I only knew one way to go when I was given a contract there, and I didn't. So I said, oh hell, how am I going to handle this? And the mate said, you'll be right, you'll handle it. I know you. Know you on the street well enough to handle it on the football paddock. I said, all right. So we got into that, and anyway, I often said to a couple of the good footballers down there, fullbacks, when I was playing fullback, I said to Gary Chapman, he was one of the best fullbacks in the countryside. And I said to Gary, I said, I wish to Christ that I took a leaf out of your pattern of play. He said, why is that? I said, you used to step around people, sidestep. I said, have a look at me. No, I'd have to take a front row forward on, head on. Full bore as fast as I could go and run straight into them, crash. And I said, have a look at the body now. The body's just smashed to pieces, you know. But that's the way I played, and I never. You're a bit of a sook if you got hurt on the football paddocks. You see blokes today, they only play half a game or 20 minutes a game, but they're looked after. But in our days, we played to play with mates and played it hard, and you weren't a sook. No good being a sook, you don't play. So anyway, I just had that feeling coming through the jail system where it all hardened me up. I was coming from the boys' home as a kid, going to the major prisons, into a manhood when I was a kid. So I've grown up with men then, and away you go, and you learn them things. So I toughed it out on the football paddock and had quite a good career. In Grafton, and that's where the Notorious prison was, and as I said, we've had all the cases with the White Alsatian and Lyle back over Stewart. We put that in, and I was so proud that I could deal with the situation and have them bowing their head at me instead of me when I'm in prison. They wanted you to bow your head to them and salute, call them sir, every fucking 5 minutes. But when I was in Grafton playing football and I went into the pub, I'd have them same fucking screws. They'd come up and say, would you like a beer, Poss? How you going, mate? Do you want to lend me motor car? Go away, you fucking grubs. You know, I had the satisfaction to be able to do that. And one time there was, we played at Woolgoolga, we played a trial match at Woolgoolga. Anyway, it's a pretty hard game down there with Woolgoolga, and the coach, we were dusting them up a little bit, that's right. And anyway, at half time, the coach said to me, Poss, he said, listen, their coach is coming on the paddock. Yeah, I said, well, what about that? And he said, well, I want you to give him a bit of a lift because he's coming along to give his side a kick, but he's the local copper here in Woolgoolga. I said, fucking is he? I said, right, well, I said, I'll test him out first fucking tackle. First tackle crash, I went in skin and bark and boots, and fights flew into an all-in brawl. Yeah, that was the first incarceration there with a policeman on the paddock. And then the second one was up in Ballina. I was playing for South Grafton and we played Ballina. And there was a bloke up there, he was a would-be, could-be fucking gun. He was the front rower for the group, believe it or not. The group front rower in the country. Made the countryside, I think. His name was Dave King. He wouldn't mind me mentioning his name because he finished up at Crim anyway. All his police work come to an end and he finished up at Crim anyway. So I played against him at in South Grafton one day, and I had altercations with him in a little town called Walker. Me and my brother went down with his wife to see his wife's parents, which lived at Walker, just out of Armidale. Anyway, I had a stink in the hotel with a bloke that was in prison with me at Glen Innes, and he was the barber. Anyway, I just can't recall his name at the moment. I never thought I'd ever forget it, but anyway, I have. Anyway, he was the barber there, and anyway, I'm walking down the lane somewhere there in the farm there at Glen Innes, and I walked past this kid, come past, he was crying and going on, and I've looked at him and he had all his fucking hair jagged and fucking cut and ripped. And I said, mate, what's wrong? Oh, he said, the fucking barber. He said, he's trying to stand over me to take me tobacco off me, and he wouldn't give me a decent haircut. And I said, and that's what he's done to you? He said, yeah. He said, he fucking cut all my hair off to pieces and jagged it up. I said, did he? Well, anyway, I said, right. I went straight down to this bloke's cell in the lunch hour break at Glen Innes, and I said to him, I said, you've given that kid a haircut up there, I said, and you tried to take his tobacco off him and you just give him a bad haircut. I said, you are an absolute grub for doing that. You're a thing. I said, and I fucking into him. Well, I belted shit out of him in the lunch hour break. So that fixed that up. No more fucking haircuts. He got out pretty quick after that, and I never seen him again then until I went to Walker with my brother and his wife. We went in the hotel, in the lounge room in the hotel, and so and behold, who do I run into? It was this barber that was in Glen Innes that gave the bad haircut to that kid, and I was smashing him. Anyway, he's looked at me and he said, oh, what are you doing here? Well, he must have had information because he knew that I shouldn't have been in New South Wales. I wasn't allowed back in New South Wales. I had to get permission to come down there and play football and all that. But anyway, this day we snuck down to Walker to see my brother's wife and that, and I was running him in the lounge, and he come up to me and said, oh, he said, what are you doing here? He said, you're not allowed in New South Wales. What are you doing here? Oh, I said, you fucking grub. You grub. So he knows that I shouldn't be there. I'll breach me parole by being there. I'm on parole. So I said, I've got to make this bloke throw the first punch. I'm not to do anything. I've got to make sure that I can get him to do something where I can attack. Anyway, so I just uttered a few quiet words on the side to him, so other people, bar himself, standing right at me, other people in the lounge looking and that, they couldn't hear exactly what I've said, but I'll give him a nice verbal, and he couldn't hand it. Well, anyway, he got his hand to about here. Well, that was good enough, because that's ready to attack me. He's let one go to about here. Well, he got about halfway, and I went crash, and I've got him flush. Well, he's finished up in the fucking fire, In wintertime, you got your fires in the old pubs in the towns, you know. He's hit the fucking edge of the fire fucking thing. Well, there was sparks and fucking shit flying out. And the brothers, we could hear the commotion, so he's immediately run into the lounge to see what happened. And he's seen me with this other idiot on the ground out. The barman's jumped the bar, the manager that owned the pub jumped the bar, and as he's coming over the bar, my brother hit him straight on the chin and knocked him out. So there's bodies laying everywhere. Next thing, the police have arrived. In come the coppers. Anyway, this big copper's come in. He was on his own actually, just the one copper come in and wanted to know what was going on and this and that. And he was quite aware of the case that my brother had been in trouble in Armidale years ago. The coppers come out to him at Walker when he was working in the mill, and they put the gun on him. To get an easy pinch, they just come in and said, oh, underneath the mattress, oh, Dennis, here, what have we got here? Here's a little revolver, what are you doing with that? You weren't allowed to have them, you had no records of it, and you weren't on the thing. So they pinched him for having a firearm in his joint, you know, which was a trumped up charge. And of course he beat it in court. He ended up beating it in court, so they weren't happy. So when this copper arrived at where I've had the altercation at the pub with the hairdresser, as I call him, the copper, he's looked at Poss, and anyway, my brother was fairly irate at the time, because he'd already hit the publican and knocked the publican out. He started to have words with the copper, and he said to the copper, oh, so you're going to big note yourself, you're going to put your gun on me, are you? You're going to put me on a trumped up charge again that he'd had before. Because this copper didn't know what he was talking about actually, but Poss gave him a sense, he said, oh, you're going to stitch me up and charge me for having a gun on me, are you? Anyway, the copper just had enough, and he just said, oh, get in the car and piss off out of it, and get out of town, get out of town. So yeah, righto. So we went down the main street and we had a feed. Me and him went into the cafe and had a big feed. Next thing, in comes the coppers again. He comes in again. He said, I told you to get out of town. I said, yeah, well, we were just having something to eat before we go. Right, we'll have it and get. Fair enough. That was the altercation I had with him on the outside. And his name was Dave King. That's who it was, Dave King, front row for Ballina. He'd gone from Walker and played football in Ballina, and I'd gone from jail to play football in South Grafton. So this day we're going over. South Grafton's going over to play Ballina at Ballina. I know that Dave King is playing front row for Ballina, and I know that he was a screw. Well, we've run out on the paddock. He was the group tough man of the lot, and he said to me after the game, I give him hell in the game, and I had him bleeding from both ears. He wouldn't go off, but I had both his ears. He was pissing blood out of both ears from where I was giving him a few short ones around the head. Anyway, we went back to the RSL club after the game. We give him a good touch up. We went back to the RSL club after the game. He was looking around for me. I could see him looking for me when me and my brother and his wife walked into the club. Well, he's headed straight for me, and my brother and his missus. And he come over. He said, how you going, Ray? I said, yeah, good, yeah. He said, well, he said, all I can say, he said, if only they were there, he said, when you were coming over and we were playing against you, he said, they said to him, be careful of the fullback. He's a pretty fiery fucking bit of gear. He said, well, what's his name? He said, oh, Ray Hyde. Oh, he said, Ray Hyde. He said, I've never heard of him. He said, I wouldn't have a clue. Haven't heard of him, he said. So he said, I took no notice. He said, but I'm telling you something now. He said, I wish to Christ they told me your nickname was Poss. He said, I'd have been ready for the explosion on the paddock when you come looking for me. He knew. And you know, that's how it was with him. And he come over and spoke to us, and he said, if only they would have said your name was Poss. Ray, I'd never heard of him, right? He fucking knew at the finish of the game. So he bled pretty well and copped it sweet. And then he was, as he was a warder, I know that he got charged for drugs and doing everything, whatever he got involved with in his life, he was getting a quid on the side as a policeman. Back in them days, you could go and get your licence. I never sat for a licence in my life. You just go down and give the bloke $50 or what it was. They'd just write your fucking licence out. No worries. So that was a little skirmish. There's a couple of satisfactions of police that I've involved in that.
Like yourself, the guy's a pistol. You know, I mean,
He's got plenty to talk about, and
Yeah.
I think what we brought up,
Yeah.
there's plenty of material there for him, and I know Price will be able to give us heaps more. So I
absolutely.
think the time factor will beat it.